Almost Healed is the 8th studio album by the artist Lil Durk. It has had some interesting events and occurrences leading up to the release of it. I've been looking forward to it, not only because Lil Durk is just a very popular artist right now, relevant both in the rap world and just the music world in general, but also just hearing about some of these things that I kind of alluded to just a second ago that inspired the making of it and heavily influenced the midst of the recording process for this album, allegedly. As well as J. Cole being featured on the lead single to this album. Anytime J. Cole is on any song nowadays, I'm intrigued because he's just on such a good run of features right now. It's honestly pretty fantastic how good all of his features have been lately. But going back to some of the subject matter that this album revolves around and talks about in different places, different tracks, Durk's brother unfortunately passed away about 2 years ago. He also had a friend by the name of King Von, who was another rapper who died about 2.5 years ago. And apparently recording this album, making this album was a good coping mechanism for Durk, or coping strategy to get over this loss, these losses that were so impactful on him. Durk has also mentioned that he is going to therapy and that he wanted this album to have a therapeutic approach to it, with this, the feeling that we get from listening to it. And if you ask me, the title Almost Healed seems to be referring to the idea that he is, getting over these recent losses that he's experienced with his personal life, but is very much still in the grieving process. So he's not quite there yet, but he's almost healed. Pretty heavy-handed stuff leading up to this album and kind of setting up the experience as a listener that had me very intrigued. And I would say that some of the best moments on this album do come from tracks, different verses that do focus kind of around this subject matter, as well as some pretty big standout features on the album, in my opinion. What is unfortunate though is that these moments are kind of few and far between on this record. It is 21 tracks long, only about 56 minutes long though, so I will give it props for that. It doesn't get too long with regards to the running time, but there are a lot of short songs, a lot of songs that are under 2.5 minutes, like a couple that are actually under 2 minutes. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there was quite a bit of filler. I felt like he was trying to pad this album and just trying to add these different tracks, and not to assume this, but probably to just garner more streams for this album, because a lot of artists do that nowadays. Look, man, make your money, do what you got to do to make a good living for yourself. Like, this album is definitely going to get a bunch of streams. It's probably going to debut at #1, all that kind of stuff. But personally, me listening to this, I felt a little unfulfilled with a lot of those tracks that I'm referring to right now. Although this album is not without its high points, absolutely, I do think that Durk does come through more than a few times with some nice songs, some nice lyrics, nice production. Sometimes I'll get to that a little bit later. I think there are good moments and good tracks on here for sure. Therapy Session, I think, does start this album off pretty well. It is a skit, spoken word delivered by Alicia Keys. She is talking to Durk in this track, in this opener, and she's bringing up, the 2 recent deaths that he's been trying to get over for some time now. She also mentions, the beefs that he has been involved with as of late, not noting anyone specifically, but obviously like NBA Youngboy, 6ix9ine, those are people that come to mind. It's a good way at setting up the rest of the album, like asking Durk to now open up, let us know how you're feeling, how things are going, and then the rest of the album starts. In the track Pell Code, I think Durk does do a good job of describing his upbringing, where he lives, and how there are a lot of people where he's from that don't live that long and that they die young, setting the scene of his roots and kind of what led him to be the man that he is today. All My Life, I think, is a nice sounding song. Dr. Luke produced this one, and I think that he does a good job at making it kind of fit with the therapeutic tone of the lyrics. The kids choir in this song really threw me off at first. I wasn't into it, but now after repeated listens, I do think it fits better. I do think it complements the track pretty well. And J. Cole's feature, I think, is once again just really great. I like the very beginning, the first couple of lines. He mentions Durk trying to be more positive with his music and how he is just trying to body these songs and trying to deliver these hard features, because that's, you know, definitely seems to be the case as of late. And I think that his verse in the track is really strong as well, especially the part when he's talking about, you know, all the young rappers that are unfortunately passing away, you know, before they get their big moment in the spotlight. He hasn't even heard of a lot of them. Big Dawg is another track that I like quite a bit on here. The production on this one is helmed by ATL Jacob, and I just love the aggressive, distorted, bass heavy trap direction that it goes in. I think it goes over really well. Durk, I think, flows on this beat really well. I think there's in particular some good repetition used here with some of his hooks, as well as Chief Wook, who's on the track as well. I also got some enjoyment out of his ad-libs and his verse, so that they were pretty funny. I think Never Imagine featuring Future is another good track on here, seeming to focus on the topic of overwhelming amounts of money and riches and how people will kind of go about handling this differently. Chop Squad DJ's production on this one is pretty good too. I like the use of the piano and the guitar, which is very subtle. At first I wasn't even sure if I was hearing the guitar, but then at the end it pops up. It's a little more prominent in the last moments of the song. Very nice. Also, I thought Future also did like Future on the track as well. He was, I mean, honestly, a little bit better than Durk, which is maybe not good for Durk, but Future was good. I mean, it felt like he really kind of owned the song, so props. Before Future is not a track that I'm particularly that into, but it does bring something more intense and just aggressive production that I did really like on Big Dawg. And there's also a part in this track that really stood out to me. I don't know if this was intentional, but the lines, "I know they really hate me now because I'm more and more famous. He can't even make it out the city. He ain't make no more bangers." With the way that he delivers it, reminds me a lot of a part in Last Call by Kanye West. "And I was almost famous, now everybody loved Kanye, I'm almost Raymond." Just wanted to point that out. I don't know if he tried to interpolate that, but it sounded kind of familiar. It, you know, just made me think about that right away.
"I know they really hate me now because I'm more famous. He can't even make it out the city, he ain't make no more bangers. And I was almost famous, now everybody love Kanye, I'm almost Raymond."
More About It is a standout track on here. I really like the contrast between Lil Durk's kind of intense delivery and the chillness and kind of low-key nature of the beat, which was produced by Metro Boomin, and I like it quite a bit. Good kind of contrasting tones there, and I also do like 21 Savage on this track. You Got Him, I think, has some decent hooks. I like his use of the word "whoa" at the end of a few different lines. I think that's kind of funny and clever. I gotta say though, there's one line that really kind of was weird to me. "I was never into abusing women. When I fuck from the back, I'd be grabbing her throat." Is he trying to contradict himself? I don't know. That was just a real head scratcher for me. Just wanted to mention that. Yeah, weird. But going back to high points on the album, for me, another one is the track "At This Point We Stuck." Really into the kind of experimental production on here. It was helmed by ATL Jacob and Major 7 with the trippy vocal sample, the kind of watery, distorted organs in the background, and a very unusual drum beat as well. At certain points, the snare and hi-hats kind of reverse just for a moment. It's a pretty cool song, I think. Following this is the track "Cross the Globe" featuring the late Juice WRLD, which is okay. I think that Juice does a fine job on the track, but this has kind of a demo-ish quality to it. I felt like the beat is a little bit unfinished, and you know, that kind of leads me to say that a lot of the tracks on here, well, I don't want to say a lot of them, but more than a few, probably close to half of them, just were very underwhelming on the production side of things, as opposed to some of the, you know, higher moments, like I just mentioned. At This Point We Stuck, Big Dawg being another one for me, All My Life, tracks like that. It was kind of just up and down for me with regards to the soundscape on this album, where it's like, okay, this sounds like a professionally produced and curated track that could be on a mainstream album put out by a mainstream artist, but then other times this feels kind of underground and, you know, unfinished, like it's not completed yet. The next track is called Drew Hill, and this is one that's definitely trying to kind of tug at your heartstrings a little bit, make you think like all, you know, kind of sad, moody, emo rap direction that it goes in, which is kind of fitting coming after the track with Juice WRLD, because that's what he was so well known for in his career. And, you know, still is, because obviously there's still music coming out from him, but that's besides the point. But I actually think that it works pretty well. I think it's a pretty song. I think Durk's vocals on this one are pretty on points. It kind of gave me, you know, minus the Juice WRLD vibes, a little bit reminded me of early NBA YoungBoy, when like 18, 19-year-old YoungBoy, that kind of music he was making at that time, you know, before the beef he had with Durk, before he had as many kids as he has too. Stand By Me is an interesting song, to say the least. It features Morgan Wallen, country singer Morgan Wallen. Actually not the first time they have teamed up. He was actually featured on the track Broadway Girls off of Durk's previous project 7220, so these guys are familiar with each other. They have worked together in the past. I will say that the hook is there. I think Morgan's hook is kind of catchy. It's, you know, it has been stuck in my head a little bit. I have to admit, I have kind of sung it in my head a little bit. But the rest of the song, I'm really not feeling. The kind of country trap fusion, I think, has really like never worked ever. I don't like that sound, and just really not feeling the lyrics, subject matter on this one. Yeah, not into it. I don't think they have very good chemistry as well. That's kind of it as far as, you know, talking about individual tracks on this album. It was a pretty big mixed bag for me. I would say there were definitely more misses than hits, unfortunately, because I do think that, as I talked about earlier in this video, there were some really, you know, very intriguing ideas setting up this album and setting up the experience of spinning it. And while I do think it has some great moments and great songs on it for sure, I think that there are too many songs. I think that the production is way too inconsistent throughout. And also, I think that a good amount of the features kind of outshine Durk by quite a bit. There were only a couple of tracks on here that I did like genuinely enjoy and could see myself coming back to, that were solo Durk, you know, no one else on the track with him. So, you know, it kind of does expose his mediocre pen game and mediocre delivery, when a lot of these other people on his album featuring on his tracks are doing a better job. If you ask me, that's kind of what is revealed with that. So overall, kind of a disappointing album. Was hoping it'd be better, but it had its moments. All in all, I would give Almost Healed a 5 out of 10. Curious to know what you guys think about this, as I always am with anything I talk about, review, react to, whatever. Want to know your thoughts on it, standout tracks, what have you. And that's kind of all I have for this video. Thank you all for watching, and peace out.